After studying this module, we shall be able to understand the implications of cultural difference for international business, understand Hofstede's framework for cultural environment, become aware of the risks involved in making generalizations while ignoring cultural differences, learn the strategies used by MNCs to deal with cultural differences, know about the EPRG framework.
In this module, we shall be concentrating on implications of cultural difference for international business. It is imperative for an international manager to understand the cultural differences before entering a new market. Its main implications are the impact of culture on business relationships with overseas clients, customers, employees, the impact of culture on website localization and web content, the impact of culture on public relations, marketing and advertising strategies.
In this module, we shall be concentrating on implications of cultural difference for international business. It is imperative for an international manager to understand the cultural differences before entering a new market. Its main implications are the impact of culture on business relationships with overseas clients, customers, employees, the impact of culture on website localization and web content, the impact of culture on public relations, marketing, and advertising strategies.
Let us now understand the implications of understanding holidays in the host country. An international manager, when contemplating specific cultural factors that will have an impact on his business relationships, he should understand the relevance of holidays as they vary considerably from culture to culture. It is advisable that the international company should select the most widely celebrated holidays in the countries where they do business in order to better appreciate what people in different markets deem important in their lives, as well as to avoid scheduling an important meeting on a day when no one in the target market is in the office. Further thinking out of the box helps, such as many people in North America have grown up in the box that says that the main holidays are Christmas, Easter, New Year and Thanksgiving. Not every culture celebrates these days, and for those who do, they might not celebrate in the same way or on the same day as those in the North America. Many of these cultures will therefore not appreciate images of snow, Santa, Easter or turkeys. When doing business internationally, the international manager must become familiar with the days on which the main holidays in his target market fall. Many of them vary from year to year based on the lunar cycle and also determine how or if his business partners and clients in potential or actual markets celebrate days such as, in many Western companies, phrases such as time is money or let's get down to business are common. On the other hand, companies in many cultures around the world spend much more time and place considerably more value on forming and developing meaningful relationships with the people they do business with. For example, many executives in the Middle Eastern, Mediterranean, Asian and South American cultures prefer to do business with people they know and trust rather than people they have just met. In these cultures, forming a relationship must often take place before doing any business deals and is required to ensure success with the overseas business partners, clients and customers. Due to the importance of relationships in many countries, an appreciation and understanding of the culture of the person one is developing a relationship with is critical. International managers should learn at least a few of the common words and phrases in the language of their target market, as this is taken as a sign of respect and an indicator that they wish to pursue a long-term business relationship with their company. This awareness and preparation goes a long way in helping to avoid embarrassing oneself and one's company, as well as possibly alienating potential customers. If one wants to ensure long-term success after initial entry into a foreign market, continued cultural awareness, communication and competencies must be a priority.
Let us study these implications in detail. The impact of culture on business relationships with overseas clients, customers, employees. When doing business internationally, the international manager must become familiar with the days on which the main holidays in his target market fall. Many of them vary from year to year based on the lunar cycle. They should learn at least a few of the common words and phrases in the language of their target market, as this is taken as a sign of respect. If one wants to ensure long term success after initial entry into a foreign market, continued cultural awareness, communication, and competencies must be a priority. For example, Back Alley Brutal, the Xbox game developed by Dream Publishing and published by Microsoft Game Studios, was recalled and pulled from the shelves in 2003. The reason behind this was the fact that verses from the Quran could be heard in the background, and it caused an extremely negative and vocal reaction from many Muslims who believed the Quran should be treated with great respect. The impact of culture on website localization and web content. International manager must understand and anticipate how a company's website would be perceived, interpreted, and responded to by potential customers in the target market. Web technologies can help capture customer data that can be used for customization. Media convergence and broadband technology make the web an ideal medium to interact with audio, video, graphic, and text. The websites that are culturally sensitive and appropriate are most likely to engage the users.
Culture impacts how people perceive, process, and interpret information. This is very important when it comes to using the internet and websites to attract international customers in overseas markets. The unique characteristics of the web carry important cultural implications that are important for business owners to be aware of in order to maximize their online potential. Web technologies can help capture customer data that can be used for customization, media convergence, and broadband technology make the web an ideal medium to interact with audio, video, graphic, and text. On the web, capacity to hold visitors' attention is an important challenge. The web is viewed by people across countries all over the world, thereby allowing for people from a wide number of cultures to view the website. Hyperlinks and self-search options rely on consumer motivation to browse. Therefore, if web content is not customized for global customers, the interactive efforts might be wasted. Using customer databases and software, country-specific and culture-specific profiles can be created and used to better meet diverse customer needs. Media convergence on the web can be used to develop culture-specific themes, pictures, contents, and sounds. The websites that are culturally sensitive and appropriate are more likely to engage the users. For example, the army of the former Soviet Union was actually known as the Red Army. Perception around the color white are another example of extremely different reactions to the same color. In many Western countries, white conjures up images of purity and innocence. Brides in wedding dresses, snow and winter. On the other hand, some Asian cultures associate white with death and mourning.
People from Asian or Middle Eastern cultures may assign different meanings to colors compared to people in North America. When localizing websites, documents, or advertising campaigns, it is crucial to step outside its own country bubble and learn a bit more about the significance that colors may have for people around the world in order to avoid embarrassment or possibly alienating potential customers. For example, the color red is often a symbol for Christmas in North America, while in countries such as Russia, China, and Vietnam, the same color symbolizes communism. Marketing, and advertising strategies. Companies need to make variations to their marketing approach when doing business internationally, as marketing strategies in one country do not always translate into success in another country. It is therefore important to be culturally sensitive and aware when producing, naming, selling, and advertising products across different boundaries.
Are deemed attractive, the nuts are believed to strengthen teeth, and these nuts are associated with a variety of cultural rituals and ceremonies. A little bit of marketing research and awareness of cross cultural differences could have avoided the failure and embarrassment associated with this marketing strategy. It is therefore important to be culturally sensitive and aware when producing, naming, selling, and advertising products.
For example, the makers of Barbie realized that little girls around the world had different skin colors, wore different clothes, and had different types of hair and had completely different names. As a result, for the past 40 years, countries including Argentina, Australia, Canada, China, and Venezuela have all sold Barbie dolls unique to their particular country and geared towards the wants and needs of their buyers. Geert Hofstede executed a large survey study regarding national values differences across the worldwide subsidiaries of this multinational corporation. He compared the answers of 117,000 IBM matched employees samples on the same attitude survey in different countries. Hofstede found that the cultures of the nations are diverse and studies differed along four primary dimensions, which are the Individualism Collective Index (IDV), which focuses on self orientation; the Power Distance Index (PDI), which focuses on authority orientation; the Uncertainty Avoidance Index (UAI), which focuses on risk orientation; and the Masculinity Femininity Index (MAS), which focuses on assertiveness and achievement. We shall discuss these in detail. Individualism Collectivism Index. It refers to the preferences for behavior that promotes one's self-interest. Cultures that score high in IDV reflects an I mentality and tend to reward and accept individual initiative. Those low in individualism reflects a V mentality and generally subjugate the individual to the group. The study reveals that wealthy countries have higher individualism score while poorer countries have represented collectivism. Power Distance Index. It measures the tolerance of social inequality, that is, power inequality between superiors and subordinated within a social system. Cultures with high PDI scores tend to be hierarchical, with members citing social role, manipulation, and inheritance as sources of power and social status. Those with low scores, on the other hand, tend to value equality and cite knowledge and respect as source of power. Uncertainty Avoidance Index. It measures the tolerance of uncertainty and ambiguity among members of a society. Cultures with high UAI scores are highly intolerant of ambiguity and as a result tend to be distrustful of new ideas or behaviors. They tend to have a high level of anxiety and stress and a concern with security and rule following. Cultures scoring low in uncertainty avoidance are associated with a low level of anxiety and stress, a tolerance of deviance and dissent, and a willingness to take risks. The Masculinity Femininity Index (MAS). Hofstede defines masculinity as a situation in which success, money, and material things dominate the society. On the contrary, femininity refers to a situation in which care for others and quality of life dominates. Cultures with high masculinity index encourage large scale enterprises without caring for the conservation of environment. Higher level jobs are occupied by men and women have a limited role to play. In a low masculinity index culture, small scale enterprises, conservation of the environment, women holding high level jobs are common. There are some organizations which focus on long term relationship with the employees. In such organizations, people have a steady approach and strive hard to live up to the expectations of the management. Employees do not look at short term objectives. On the contrary, some organizations have employees who are more concerned with their position and image. They follow a culture where people move on in a short span of time and nothing is done to retain them. The employees are concerned only with their profits and targets and leave as and when they get a better opportunity.
So there may be many combinations. All these show the complexity of culture's effect on attitude and behavior.
Putting together national scores from 1 for the lowest to 120 for the highest, Geert Hofstede's six dimensions model allows international comparison between cultures. Power Distance Index shows very high scores for Latin and Asian countries, African areas, and the Arab world. On the other hand, Anglo and Germanic countries have a lower power distance. Regarding the Individualism Index, there is a clear gap between developed and Western countries on one hand and less developed and Eastern countries on the other. North America and Europe can be considered as individualistic with relatively high scores. In contrast, Asia, Africa, and Latin America have strong collectivistic values. Uncertainty avoidance scores are the highest in Latin American countries, Southern and Eastern Europe countries, including German speaking countries, and Japan. They are lower for Anglo, Nordic, and Chinese culture countries. Masculinity is extremely low in Nordic countries. In contrast, masculinity is very high in Japan and European countries like Hungary, Austria, Switzerland, influenced by German culture. High long term orientation scores are typically found in East Asia with China, Hong Kong, and Japan. They are moderate in Eastern and Western Europe and low in the Anglo countries, the Muslim world, Africa, and in Latin America. Indulgence scores are highest in Latin America, parts of Africa, the Anglo world, and Nordic Europe. Restraint is mostly found in East Asia, Eastern Europe, and the Muslim world.
With 66 for the United Kingdom, for example, and in case of Latin countries, present contrasting scores. For example, Venezuela has 73-point score, whereas Chile has only 28 score. High long-term orientation scores are typically found in East Asia, with China having 118, Hong Kong 96, and Japan 88. They are moderate in Eastern and Western Europe and low in the Anglo countries, the Muslim world, the African countries, and in Latin America. However, there is less data about this dimension. There is even less data about the sixth dimension. Indulgence scores are highest in Latin America, parts of Africa, the Anglo world, and Nordic Europe. Restraint is mostly found in East Asia, Eastern Europe, and the Muslim world.
Let us now discuss the EPRG framework. The authors of this scheme suggest that firms can be classified as ethnocentric, polycentric, regiocentric, and geocentric depending on the international commitment of the firm. A key assumption is the degree of internationalization to which management is committed or willing to move towards affects the specific international strategies and decision rules of the firm. Ethnocentric orientation. This is illustrated by the domestic company seeking sales extension of its domestic products into foreign markets. Domestic business is its priority, and foreign sales are seen as a profitable extension of domestic operations. The ethnocentric position appears to be appropriate for a small company just entering international operations, or for companies with minimal international commitments because this approach entails a minimal risk and commitment to overseas markets. No international investment is required and no additional selling cost incurred, with the possible exception of higher distribution costs.
In the ethnocentric orientation, international operations are viewed as secondary to domestic operations and primarily as a means of disposing of surplus domestic production. Plans for overseas markets are developed in the Home Office utilizing policies and procedures identical to those employed in the domestic market. Domestic business is its priority and foreign sales are seen as a profitable extension of domestic operations. Overseas marketing is most commonly administered by an export department or international division, and the marketing personnel by an export department or international division.
Polycentric orientation. Firms with this orientation market on a country by country basis with separate marketing strategies for each country. The prevalent philosophy at this stage is that local personnel and techniques are best suited to deal with local market conditions. Subsidiaries are established in overseas markets, and each subsidiary operates independently of the others and establishes its own marketing objectives and plans.
A company guided by this concept has a sense that company markets are vastly different and that market success requires an almost independent program for each country. A company with this concept does not look for similarities among elements of the marketing mix that might respond to standardization. Rather, it aims for adaptation to local country markets. Control is typically decentralized to reflect belief that the uniqueness of each marketing requires local marketing input and control. As the company begins to recognize the importance of inherent differences in overseas markets, a polycentric attitude emerges.
Geocentric Orientations. A geocentric company views the entire world as a single market and develops standardized marketing mix, projecting a uniform image of the company and its products for the global market.
A region-centric company views different regions as different markets. A particular region with certain important common marketing characteristics is regarded as a single market, ignoring national boundaries. Objectives are set by negotiation between the headquarters and regional headquarters on the one hand and between regional headquarters and individual subsidiaries on the other. A geocentric company views the entire world as a single market and develops standardized marketing mix, projecting a uniform image of the company and its products for the global market. In general, the desirability of a particular international orientation EPRG tends to depend on several factors such as the size of the firm, the experience gained in a given market, the size of the potential market, and the type of the product and its cultural dependency.
Let us recapitulate what we have learnt in this module. Culture has a strong impact on business relationships. In some countries, individualism motivates personal accomplishment, while in others, the concept of group is prominent. In some societies, traditions, ceremonies, and social norms are very important as compared to some Western countries. To explain why cultural diversity exists, Gerd Hofstede has developed a framework. An MNC may face an altogether different culture in its parent and subsidiary units. Thus, for an international manager, understanding the EPRG framework also becomes very important.